Frank Smets, you've been given a lecture here at the Institute today on the ECB's monetary policy. Can I just ask you one first question, which is pretty weird? When I was in school, 0 was 0 and 2 was 2. But you explain to us now, from the point of view of the ECB, 0 is 2. Why is that?
Did I say that 0 is 2? No,
well, you said price stability, which could be interpreted as 0 inflation, is actually 2%. Why is that? Or close to 2%. Why is that?
Well, as I explained in the lecture, there are basically two main reasons why it's important to have a small inflation buffer of 2%. The first one is because of the zero lower bound. So when inflation is a little bit higher, you have a bit more of room for maneuver before you have to make use of unconventional measures, which are by itself a little bit more uncharted territory. And the second reason is in a heterogeneous monetary union like the euro. Like the euro area, we also need some relative price adjustments. And in the presence of downward nominal wage rigidity, it's again a bit easier if you have a little bit of inflation, 2%. That smooths the adjustment. And by the way, we're not the inventors of this, so the 2% inflation objective is basically pursued by most central banks of the world.
Okay, thank you very much. The second question would be, you know, at the time when the oil prices were coming down, you were always saying, or the ECB was sort of saying that, you know, important thing is that, you know, headline inflation is coming down, that's terrible. Now that the oil prices have been coming up again, you say core inflation isn't coming up, that's terrible. There seems to be two, you know, any way it served you, you use this argument, but you don't stick with the same measurement.
No, I would disagree with that. And again, as I explained also in the lecture, when you look at the first half of 2014, not only headline inflation came down very quickly and then reached 0, but also core inflation. So inflation without food and energy prices basically dropped below 1% at the end of 2013 and risked dropping further without action by the central bank. This was very much also clear in sort of measures that showed that risks of deflation had increased a lot. And again, in the lecture, I gave you one example of this.
You were very pleased when you said that, you know, TLTRO, that is quantitative easing here at the ECB, was working well, especially in countries like Italy and Spain, because credit lending rates went down there and did not go down before when rates were lowered. So that seems to be, you know, a targeted measure at these countries.
Well, I mean, our mandate is for the euro area as a whole. And of course, if we see that our measures do not feed through into bank lending conditions across the euro area, then that has an impact on the overall performance of the economy. So it's not for particular countries, it's just because it impaired the effectiveness of our policy.
Now then you said also, there's been some discussion on the question in which way you're going to exit from the QE process, which is some now talk of the market all the time now. And we're talking about reverse order. What does that mean?
I'm not going to comment on sort of any future policy decision by the central bank. That's really for the governing council and for our executive board to do.
In one of your slides, you could also see that you were sort of expecting core and headline inflation to be like close but below to 2% in 2019.
I'm not. Oh, yes. I guess I showed 2019, and this is indeed what is currently in our forecast. Now, it's still, I think, for 2019, it's 1.6% at the moment, between 1.6 and 1.7%, which is closer to 2%, but basically even a bit closer could be even better.
What does that mean then, or imply for monetary policy?
Well, let me just repeat what the Governing Council said also yesterday, that they think a very substantial degree of accommodation is still needed to ensure that inflation adjusts to a path that is consistent with our aim of close but below 2%.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.